Hello YouTube, welcome to my YouTube channel, Anna Bella, and today I'm going to be reviewing episode 1 of Lord of the Flies. The episode is called Piggy, after the character Piggy. The Lord of the Flies is a book by William Golding. It's set on an island after a plane carrying refugees and children has crashed, killing the pilot, leaving only the little boys alive. There's a choir full of boys, there's some older boys, and then there's the little ones. There have been 2 film versions of it. One in black and white, another one where they tried to update it with sea cadets that were stranded, and neither quite worked. This BBC version has been one of the very few to actually incorporate nature and the island itself as a character, because what is really good in William Golding's book is the island is described as being alive, as if it's a sentient being itself, besides the pig on a stick, which we will get to very much later in later episodes. What I really liked about this episode is the music was good. You had little bits of nature with the caterpillar crawling along. You felt the spirit of the island. Not that the island has got a soul or anything, but you felt the nature of the island. The island itself was a character, and that is given huge emphasis in the book. There are another 2 characters that are really important. They don't have an episode. There's Roger, who's a really important character, and a little one with the birthmark. He's known as a little boy with a birthmark. Those 2 characters are really important, and they turn up in this episode, and they do a stellar job. There are going to be 4 episodes in the series so far. Piggy, Jack, Simon, and Ralph, and that's basically it. And it's 1 episode per really important character. Piggy represents humanity. He's sensible. He has asthma. He wears a grease-proof windbreaker. He wears spectacles, and he's from a lower class. Unfortunately, his accent in this was too posh, but that's beside the point. 2 things about Piggy. In the book, you never learn his name. He never tells you. He just tells Roger that he doesn't want to be called Piggy. Unfortunately, that's the only bit of information Roger has to give to the others because Roger's losing face. In this version, Piggy's name is revealed to be Nicholas, who's the patron saint of thieves. Don't tell his aunt. He lives with his uncle and aunt because his parents are dead. What is the context for the whole of this story is that there's some kind of nuclear war going on, which is why these boys are being evacuated in the first place. We don't know why the plane crashed. Was it hit? But we do know that the pilot, an RAF pilot, is no more. And there are 2 things in this episode that they've done differently with Piggy. Obviously giving him the name Nicholas, because in the book it's never revealed. We don't know what his name is. He's very much like the second Mrs. De Winter. We don't know what her name is in the novel Rebecca. Last night I dreamt I was at Mandley again. Yeah, enough of that, thank you. Circular plot. And there's another book that has a character that doesn't have a name, and that's Curly's wife, and that is Of Mice and Men, and she's just known as Curly's wife. We don't know what her name is. So you've got the second Mrs. De Winter and Curly's wife, and you've got Piggy. We never find out what their names are in the book. In this version, they've named him Nicholas, the patron saint of thieves. And another point that they've done with Piggy in this version is they've actually shown him to have quite a bit of fun with the collecting of the firewood. He was sort of putting it down, forgetting what he was doing, and then going back to it. That is a key point in the plot, because what happens in the plot when they all start collecting this firewood was the little ones would start to do it and then they'd forget. And I love the fact that they actually made Piggy be the one to forget. So if he'd bump into Jack and they'd sort of play chasey with this pig, and then Jack would lose faith and blame Piggy, and then he'd bump into lots of Simon and then they'd start singing and Piggy again would start loading up. I love the fact that you've got the forgetfulness of children, and that was included in Piggy's character because A, it makes him actually be a child, and B, you get that playfulness. In the book, you never get a playful Piggy at all. He represents civilization, humanity. He combs his hair. He does his best. You've got the conch. He is an intelligent child, but he is a working class child, which is part of why he's dismissed, as well as him looking like a pig with his piggy nose, and the fact that he has asthma and he talks about his uncle and aunt to an annoying degree. Overall, the episode Piggy was an excellent episode. I'm glad that he is alive at the end of it. there is another character that is really important. The boy with a birthmark is so important because, unfortunately, William Golding falls into the trap of using this birthmark to represent ominousness. And the boy with the birthmark is the first one to talk about the beast or the malevolent spirit, which leads us on to our second minor character who is actually really important, Roger. Roger is psychopathic. Yeah. Ralph needs Piggy to establish civilization. Jack needs Roger to establish what he's going to establish later on. And we'll discover more of that, I suspect, in episode 2, episode called Jack, which I've not seen yet. But I have read the story too in an 9th degree. Simon is Jesus, by the way. I love the fact that they've actually made Simon a prominent character, because in the book, Simon is very much a background character. We know that he faints and he has these fits and he kind of flomps a lot. And he does, when he does speak, it tends to be very spiritual. But that's also, again, William Golding doing what he did with the boy with the birthmark. He's assigning disability features to spirituality or demonicness. We wouldn't do that now, but that's a sign of the times that he was writing in. Roger is a character you need to watch out for, because those little uns that were in the cave and Roger was just throwing stones, he wasn't hitting them, he was deliberately missing them, but he was doing it enough to create that menace and that tension. That menacing tension builds and builds and builds in the book, which is why the atmosphere of the island is really important to establish. I love the fact that when we met Piggy, when he slaps his face, he actually hits some glass in it and makes his face bleed, and you've got that tension, because his wheezing could indicate, yes, he's got asthma, but it could indicate that he's actually got a broken rib. We don't know what's going on, because if you looked at Piggy's legs, they were all covered in scratches and stuff. So he clearly landed with a bump, and he does have a head injury, because it's very clear. That gets worse, and all of the Piggy wheezing hints at what is going to happen to his unfortunate character. Piggy is not a character that makes it, sorry, spoilers. But it hints at what's going to happen to him. Also, how the pilot's death is dealt with, and the fact that people say we should bury him. No, we're going to put him in the sea, but they don't. They end up chucking him off a cliff, and he ends up splatting back, further down the island, going splat. Violence is a key part of Lord of the Flies. It doesn't go away, it gets worse, and it builds and it builds and it builds with this tension. And Roger is behind the tension. It's masterfully done. But I'm loving the fact that when Piggy picked up that fruit and tentatively licked it, you got the maggots at the back, and that hints at something that's going to happen later on with maggots. Yeah, if you're of a squeamish disposition, don't watch BBC's Lord of the Flies, and don't watch Emerald Ferrell's Wuthering Heights. I will be doing a review on that very soon, but I wanted to get episode 1 of Lord of the Flies Piggy done. Out of 5, I'm giving it 5 out of 5 so far. They got the music right, they got the atmosphere right, which is 2 things that previous adaptations have just let down. The kid actors are spot on, and it's not just Roger, Piggy, Simon and Jack who are correct. Ralph, but Roger was excellent as well. And the little one with the birthmark, he's a key important character. He practically, when he starts mentioning the beast, he practically nearly has about, I think it's like 1.5 or 2 pages devoted to the boy with the birthmark, and he gets mentioned again because they can't find him at one point. You'll find out. And it's hinted at the end because they left it with the fire and all of that. It gets worse. It does get violent and children do die. That's all I'm going to say. 5 out of 5 from me. It's an excellent adaptation. Episode 1 was brilliant with the material. I'm really looking forward to episode 2, 3 and 4. I'm fascinated, but that's because the guy behind this did The Wonderful Adolescent earlier in the year, so he really understands not only youth violence but violence within children. And I'm loving the fact you got the forgetfulness of Piggy, because it hints at the little uns forgetting and moving on. I love that. So 5 out of 5 from me. Roll on episode 2, which is an episode all about Jack who is insecure. Ralph is also insecure as well in his leadership, which is why he relies on Piggy, and it's also why Jack ends up relying on Roger. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and do click the notification bell for my next video. Thank you so much.